Right, guys, it's time to grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and we're going to talk a little bit about Rostermania. I mean, I finished this, and I know, right, let's be honest, it's a little cup. It's very, very womanly, I'll be honest. My lass goes, she obsesses over little cups that fit just about enough coffee into it. And they're pretty spot on in terms of size, I'll be honest with you, but with big 6'2" Chris Tunn holding them, they do look a little bit small, but... So that's done. Forget about the coffee, forget about the tea. Let's just talk about Rostermania. I haven't had a video out in Rostermania in a few days now because it had realistically quietened down, and then all of a sudden last night it just sort of exploded. I was sort of thinking to myself, actually, I nearly did a video on it yesterday, but I'm pretty happy I waited. I was thinking to myself, okay, nothing's happened. Let's see if something happens, because if I make it now, loads of changes and roster rumors are going to come out as soon as I make the video, and albeit it did. So I'm pretty happy I didn't actually do anything yesterday, but we've had a lot to talk about today. Of course, the official announcement coming in last night, Methods has joined Faze, so that roster is now Attach, Zuma, Replays, Priester, and Methods. I mean, finally, he's found himself on a roster that he deserves, let's be honest. Last year, in terms of KD, etc., he was the top respawn KD, a phenomenal player. I think he was maybe scapegoated a little bit in that Optic squad, and I think that's probably why his stock was a little bit low. But I think for me, he's a solid player. I think anybody picking him up would have been a good pickup for them. Eventually got on this Faze roster, we know what they can do, and I think a lot of people talked about how this is a really good vibes roster. You know, you've got some guys in there who very lighthearted. You know, there's not many guys on that team who are easily tilted, that sort of thing. It's a nice roster. I think they'll work very, very well together. I think Methods coming in, he will be able to work with Replays if he is AR, and again this year. And I just think it works. You look at all the members on that team and you feel confident in every single role that they can all perform at a high level. I think Faze are easily going to be a top 6 team this year. They may be able to push further. We've seen what they did last year, the odd occasion here and there. They'd have good results. I think Methods definitely adds to that talent. And I really like the squad. Realistically, though, I mean, I did hear that he was potential for Splice, but that they already had accuracy on the lineup, and they didn't want to bring in Methods because he's typically known as a fairly slow AR, as is accuracy, of course. So for that reason, they actually went for Aqua instead of Methods. I understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand where they're coming from. I think if you had accuracy and Methods on the same team, yes, okay, yeah, AR player would be fairly dominant, but I think realistically, they were right in not picking him and accuracy up. I think it could have been very, very slow. So they went for Aqua, and now you look at that Splice squad, they're a very, very good S&D team as well. So brushing over Splice and coming to something that the Burner said last night. Now, I'd heard a couple of rumors about Classic potentially going up this LG squad, but I was just like, but I don't know who he goes in for, because I mean, we're presuming that Gunless is going on to that team, and presuming right by the looks of things, that is what's going to probably happen. But Classic going in there, I got told about this, and I was a little bit like, well, who does he replace? And I can only presume there's maybe been a fallout as to why JCap seems to be leaving and going to EUnited. But let's cover the LG team first. So it's going to be Slacked, Formal, John, Gunless, and Classic. Now, I mean, this is all just rumors, by the way. But I mean, as said, I heard outside of the burner that Classic could potentially be going to this LG squad. So for me, I mean, it makes sense. I still like this team. I still really, really like this team. But I think losing JCap is a bad thing. I think the experience and the leadership that he brought to LG, losing him isn't great. For me, I look at this team now. Okay, yes, they still do have leaders there, but I think JCap was pretty much like the glue that held them together. And I mean, I really like the EUnited team now. I'm going to talk on that in a second. But for me, I think LG should have maybe done more to keep a hold of him. Obviously, we don't really know the situation as of yet. He might come out and say, of course, but I don't know. But a Classic coming in this team, I don't mind the pickup. I mean, I'm going to go through some other free agents that are still in and around that we don't really know what they're doing. And I mean, you can maybe suggest some of them to go into this LG team instead of Classic. But realistically, Classic didn't have a great year last year, but we've seen him put up good results in previous years. Obviously, when he was on that LG team, when Octane and co were in that was a very, very solid squad. So realistically, he can always step into this team and still do well. I just think it might be a slight downgrade for me. I think I would have preferred to see JCap on that roster. EUnited, right, okay. I said, the burner has said Clay, Arcides, Pristini, Abizi, and JCap onto this team. I absolutely love this roster. Well, first and foremost, you've got Clayster and JCap, two of the biggest veterans in this scene. Phenomenal players. They've been around for years, plenty of championships under their belt. JCap, obviously, plenty of championship rings as well. I mean, for me, this has a great core leadership. And if the other three listen to these two, EUnited are going to be a big, big team this year. Arcides and Pristini, the two twins in there. Pristini ended up staying on this roster. Of course, Fellow has been left off it now. But I mean, I sort of seen it coming. They probably wanted to change something up after an okay year last year. I think that they did need to change something. Obviously, they were going to bring somebody in anyway, which seems to be an Abizi, but so to speak, swapping JCap for Fellow is a good pickup. I said, so you've got that leadership in Clay and JCap, Arcides and Pristini, the two twins, and I think Abizi in there as well. Let's bring him into the conversation. Realistically, you've got JCap and Clay. They can help Pristini and Abizi develop themselves into better players. Arcides doesn't need any help doing that because he's phenomenal. But Pristini can be one of these players who obviously gets very tilted. He can be negative, and I think that's just his personality. You know, he can get himself down about how he's playing. But you got guys like JCap and Clay. I mean, Clay was already doing a great job at keeping Pristini's head above water, so to speak. But now you got JCap in there, who's going to bring the experience, bringing that leadership into Pristini. They've got a young, raw talent in Abizi, who, as said, has two of the best leaders in the game on his team. I think this team is destined to flourish. I think they'll be very, very strong. There's been a lot of question marks around Abizi that, okay, well, he didn't really do much last year in terms of placements, that sort of thing. And neither did Dashi, who's going to Optic. Of course, Dashi does have the stats to back it up. Abizi had a couple of decent performances, and from what I've seen, he's definitely one of the better amateurs in America who are coming onto a pro team. So I like the pickup, I really do. The jury is out on him, but I think he is set up to succeed with this team. As said, Clay and JCap coming in there, sort of moulding him into a player that he could potentially be. We've seen the raw talent from him. Abizi will be a very, very good player. So let's move on now to some free agents that are still in America. I'm just going to list some off here. So Chino, Fellow, Decimate, General, Gunjar, Royalty, Exotic, Sensor, and Saints. So I don't really know what's going on with the whole Lightning Pandas roster, like that former roster, obviously, of Gunjar, Royalty, and all that. I'm not 100% sure. So let's see what happens out there. Of course, there's a lot of people in there who were from that team on that list. And I'm really interested to see how that ends up, because Lightning Pandas were a very good team last year. They were on the cusp of Pro League all the time. They got some pretty decent results throughout the year too. So I really wanted to see where Royalty ended up, but it seems as if he hasn't really been given the chance, and a couple of teams have selected that young talent over Royalty, who has been around for a couple of years and always done fairly decent. I think he could have been on a good team, but it looks like he's going to have to fare with the team that he was probably in. I'm interested to see what they do though, but for me, one of the biggest free agents out there at the moment is Chino. I think realistically, you look at what he did last year, a very, very good AR player. He was pretty good in that MV team, who didn't do that great, but he looked good in that NV team. And I mean, I'd heard rumors of him going to Faze, which would have made sense, but I think picking up Methods probably works a little bit better for them. I would say overall, Methods was a very, very good Slayer last year. Chino can do the dirty work, but I think that Faze team needed another really good Slayer in that team, and I think Methods fits the bill for that. So I feel bad for Chino, because I think he would have been next in line, definitely potentially onto that roster. But looking at the rest of these free agents, I think we're probably going to see another team come in, which is just really an amalgamation of all these free agents sort of thrown together, because there's nobody else to really team with unless these guys are going to drop into teams. I mean, what, you put Chino on that former Lightning Pandas roster, something like that could work out. I mean, General, he's a typical very good AR player. We could see, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he sort of makes his own roster, of course, underneath his organization. Sensor, who knows? I mean, there's been a lot of rumors that he could potentially be going back to that Lightning Panda squad, or teaming up with some players who were in that team, at least under whatever organization. And that really wouldn't surprise me either. I think we seen it on Reddit the other day where Sensor was talked about maybe not being the best player, but he brings other things to the table for a team that, I mean, as long as they use him correctly, is a very, very good asset to have on an organization. Let's see what he does. We got somebody like Saints, Vicento, people like that who aren't confirmed on rosters as well. But But as I said, I mean, nobody really knows where the land is lying. I'm just making suggestions here. For Sento could go into a team with the former Lightning Pandas team or the current Lightning Pandas team. Nobody really knows at this point what's happening underneath the top 8 teams in America. So it'll be interesting to see where those players go. Decimate, poor year last year. He could maybe slot into one of them. The possibilities are endless with these guys. I'm interested to see where they go. Now, quickly on to Europe. I've sort of been wondering who the Mad Cats team pick up now, because for me in Europe, there's not a massive choice, but I've heard a couple of rumours that it could indeed be PD. A couple of people will look at this from the outside that it's maybe not one of the best roster pickups after his last year that he had. I mean, he didn't make it in the Pro League or anything like that. The Millennium team that he was in struggled, but towards the end of the year, PD had a pretty decent time of things. Top of my head, can't remember the roster he was on. I think was it Team Sween? I'm going to have to check that. But either way, I think realistically, he's had good years previously. He's always been one of the more talented players in Call of Duty from Europe, I would say, over the past 3 years or so. So I think the potential for PD is always there. It's whether or not he can get the better teammates around him, and that's not me slighting anybody on Millennium who was in that team. You know, that team just didn't work out. Him and Marky B teamed together for a long time. That relationship clearly got a little bit stale and just stopped working. So I think realistically, PD, if he can screw his head on, because I mean there was questions over how the way he plays, then I think he can do well on this team. You look at the roster, okay, you've got Alex and PD, similar players who are a bit like trying to leash two dogs, isn't it? It's like, you know, they've got all the ability to go out there and kill everything, but realistically they need to rein them in. I think they have the people to rein them in Mad Cat and Josh. Dave's going to be there as well, giving the good vibes. So realistically, from the outside, I think a lot of people will look at this team and maybe think, PD, is that the best pickup? Maybe not, but realistically, I think the potential is there for that roster to do very, very well. I'd be interested to see if they can get themselves a good organization. Of course, that is just a rumor, nothing confirmed from PD or from that team to say he was going to be picked up by them, but it's looking likely at the moment. Interested to see who they're picked up by organization-wise, but I mean, that's it. This seems to be Rostermania now coming to a close from the top end. Of course, we're going to have teams who are in that 12 to 16 range who are going to be picking up players and sort of seeing where they go. And we know Mindfreak have confirmed their roster now as well, so let's see how they do, if they can get themselves into Pro League. I think they will, but then you've got teams in Europe who have been formed, like Reedy's new team, those sort of guys who could definitely do work and maybe find themselves in the pro circuit, in the Pro League. That's going to be it. I think Rostermania is done. I think it is. Don't quote me though. Things could change, and of course with these rosters all just rumored, we know things can change fairly quickly. So until they're confirmed, it's not over, but it might be over now. It may well be. Guys, thank you very much for all the views, all the comments, all the likes, even the dislikes. I love you haters, but I think all these videos on Rostermania have been very, very popular with you guys, and thank you very, very much for all the support here in the off season. Call of Duty obviously comes out on Friday. Hopefully I can get it early. Doubt I will. The servers are probably not up in time anyway, but really, really excited for the year to come now. Rostermania, as said, does seem to be over. Guys, please subscribe to the channel. We're going to have plenty more coming throughout the season. Predictions, all that rubbish, all that stuff I pretend I know what I'm talking about. Please leave a like on the video as well. It means a lot to me and everyone here at the European Gaming League. But guys, we will see you in the next video. Catch you then.